We present Kenneth Williams, Nicholas Parsons and Geraldine Jones in just a minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is this week's chairman, Clement Freud.
Thank you for that tumultuous reception. I'm here surrounded by buzzers and stopwatches and Nicholas Parsons. And I also have a list of unlikely subjects for the panel to talk about for 60 seconds each, without pausing, without going off the subject, and without repetition. In other words, keep going, stick to the point, don't repeat yourself. Kenneth Williams, will you talk for 1 minute on making an entrance, starting now?
Well, as the poet has it, all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances. And that is absolutely true. We come into this world naked. Indeed, we come into it quite naked. And after that, we've got to make entrances in a different way. We can't come in naked, obviously.
Nicholas Parsons.
Well, there was repetition of his nakedness.
Yes, that's...
And I would say that Kenneth Williams...
Don't spoil it for yourself.
All right.
You have a point. You are making an entrance. You have 37 seconds starting now.
Well, I'm delighted to think that I have 37 seconds starting now in which to make a...
Kenneth Williams.
Deviation.
You're absolutely right, because I made a mistake. He had 47 seconds. It was deviation.
Oh!
Kenneth Williams.
Wait till I'm back on the channel chair again.
You have 39 seconds making an entrance starting now.
There are two kinds...
Nicholas Parsons.
Deviation, because you said 37 seconds before, you said 39 now. So if it was wrong for me, it is also deviation for Kenneth.
You're talking nonsense, Kenneth. No points awarded, but you have the subject back.
Thank you. Well, there's the entrance, of course, on the stage, and there's the entrance in private life, at a cocktail party or something like that. And I think all of us agree that when we do make an entrance, our initial...
Nicholas Parsons.
Three entrances, repetition.
Yes. Nicholas Parsons, you have 28 seconds, making an entrance starting now.
Well, I'm delighted to think that this time I have 28...
Again and again.
Yes, he
Yes.
keeps on about
Delighted.
it.
I've
He
only
keeps
been
on being
delighted
delighted.
twice.
He's throbbing with it.
Geraldine Jones, you have a point.
Ridiculous.
Kenneth Williams, will you stop throbbing? Making an entrance, 25 seconds starting now.
When you're making an entrance, whether it's in a brick wall or at a gathering, you have to remember what materials you have. It's no use making an entrance in a stunning black dress if you're going to be going to a party where...
Nicholas Parsons.
Hesitation.
Hesitation is right.
Yes.
You have 13 seconds starting now.
I'm horrified to think that I have...
Kenneth Williams.
Deviation, whether it's horrified or not, is not the point. I mean, we discussed it.
Nicholas Parsons, you have 3 seconds in which to justify.
I'm horrified to think you want me to speak for 13 seconds about making an entrance.
I think Kenneth Williams has a very good point indeed. And you have 8 seconds making an entrance starting now.
Making an entrance means that...
Nicholas Parsons.
Repetition. He's made so
right.
many entrances already.
Right.
Yes.
6 seconds making an entrance now.
I don't really wish to speak about this subject.
If he doesn't wish to speak about it, why start?
Under what general heading was that complaint? Under what general?
There's deviation.
Oh, yes. Yes, I'll give you a deviation.
May
You have the
I
subject.
justify myself, Sherman?
Not again.
May
3
I-
seconds starting now.
I once made an entrance as Nefertiti, and it was fabulous. They all went raving when I came in as Nefertiti, and it was actually not. I had this crepe hat on me, and it was really fantastic.
Nicholas Parsons,
Well, he said entrance again. He's already said it about 7 times.
you have the subject for 1 second starting now.
I will speak about making an entrance.
It's disgraceful.
You reluctantly get a point because you were talking when the buzzer went. Nicholas Parsons has the next subject. Will you speak for 1 minute, please, on the Parsons nose? Starting now.
It is very curious that you should ask me to speak about Parsons' nose. I feel that probably I have a special reason for talking about this particular subject. Of course, many of you may not know that the derivation of this particular phrase arose from the Scottish MacNose clan. They, of course, deviated from the established Church of Scotland, and when they drifted south, being clerics, of course, they adopted the Parsons. They dropped the Mac and kept the nose. This is, of course, the derivation of Parsons' nose, as, of course, I know only too well.
Geraldine Jones.
Repetition.
Of what?
Of derivation. He explained this before he started.
Yes, that's true. He also said, of course, 5 times. Geraldine Jones, you have the Parsons' nose for 25 seconds, starting now.
It's very difficult for me to talk about this because, situated as we are, Nicholas Parsons is to the left of me and I can't really speak into the microphone at the same time as I look at his nose. Fortunately, it's made such a vivid impression upon my memory that I can talk about it without actually looking at it. It's perhaps not...
Nicholas Parsons.
Hesitation.
I'm afraid, yes. Hesitation. You have it back, your own nose, for 8 seconds.
Which came first, the curate or the egg? Now, of course, those of you who know the answer to this very simple riddle know that...
Geraldine Jones.
Deviation.
I couldn't agree more. Deviation. Parsons' nose, 2 seconds, starting now.
It's perhaps not a terribly memorable nose.
Geraldine gets an extra point because she was talking when the bell went for the minute. Geraldine, you have the next subject. Will you speak for 1 minute on the subject of trunks, starting now?
Trunks are without doubt the most provocative and charming part of the clothes of any young male elephant. It doesn't really matter whether the trunk is pink or grey. It has that look about it that distinguishes elephants from all the other horrible big animals and makes you somehow think they're rather sweet and nice. Why is it that everyone likes elephants? It's because they have super trunks.
We've had 3 elephants and 4 trunks. Repetition.
And you have 1 trunk, and you have 40 seconds, starting now.
Some people have referred to Parsons' nose as a trunk. This, of course, is completely untrue. The trunks are really more in the enlightened way of thinking about this, the trunks that you see on people when they are swimming. When you see someone go splash into the water and he comes out without his trunks, we all shout...
Geraldine Jones.
Lots of trunks.
Roughly the same number of trunks. You have a point. You have 21 seconds. Trunks starting now.
All the expression in an elephant's face is concentrated in his trunk. When he's happy, it waves up in the air. When he's sad, it sags listlessly downwards.
Kenneth Williams.
Hesitation.
It's a very minor hesitation. All right. You haven't spoken for a while.
Thank you.
11 seconds on trunks starting now.
Some people, and indeed I've seen them, they take as much as 24 pieces of luggage on a holiday, but the most important piece of luggage for a long holiday is, of course, your trunk. You've got to have a large, capacious trunk in which you can stuff every...
Nicholas Parsons.
Repetition of trunks.
You have 1 second to go on trunks starting now.
When it is...
Hesitation. Hesitation.
I thought a definite hesitation. Kenneth Williams is completely right. You have 0.8 of a second starting now.
Definite hesitation.
I never got it out!
Nicholas Parsons starting now.
Trunks!
Nicholas Parsons has an extra point because the bell rang. Kenneth Williams, you have the next subject. Will you speak for 1 minute on keeping pets? Starting now.
Sorry, I was challenging myself. That's ridiculous, isn't it? Keeping pets. Well, I once had this goldfish and it just went round and round in this bowl and I got very fond of it, you know, but all this stuff started creeping all over it, a sort of hazy, misty stuff, and I took it to this bloke and he said, oh, yes, well, it means that you've had impure water in the tank, and so what I suggest is you take it out and scrape it all off. And I thought, oh, I don't want to hold it in my hand and actually scrape it all off.
Nicholas Parsons.
All very devious. But he also was repeating the scraping in the hand.
I don't really agree. I was fascinated.
I was revolted, actually.
Kenneth Williams, another point, and you have 47 seconds, starting now.
Yes, so I gave up the goldfish, you see, and I buried it. I did a nice little plaque over the top, but that was neither here nor there.
Geraldine Jones.
You can't keep a dead pet. So it's deviation.
I would have thought this is exactly the way to keep a pet. Kenneth Williams, you have another point. You have 30 seconds, starting now.
So I moved on to get another pet instead, you see, and this pet was a hamster. Now, hamsters are very curious things because they need an awful lot of warmth, you know. They do need warmth, you see. So I had it in a box behind the lavatory.
Repetition.
Of warmth. You have the subject. You have 17 seconds, starting now.
Keeping pets is something I never, ever want to do. Occasionally I've stayed at houses where people...
Kenneth Williams.
Deviation, we're discussing keeping pets, not what she doesn't want to do.
No.
What if she don't want to do
Geraldine
it?
Jones, you have another point. You have 13 seconds, starting now.
I'm absolutely convinced that the only people who keep pets are lunatics.
Nicholas Parsons.
Repetition, she's been keeping pets since...
I think I'm going to make a ruling here. The interruptions are coming so fast and furious, each person may repeat the subject once without being buzzed by the others for repetition. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Right, 8 seconds, Geraldine Jones. No points given to anyone for that. Starting now.
The whole house revolves around this business, and it's always terribly uncomfortable for any visitors. You have to be careful where you go. You have to bear in mind that some of your dinner goes to the dog.
Geraldine gets a point for speaking when the bell goes. Nicholas, you have the next subject, which is getting bubbles into soda water. Will you speak for 1 minute, starting now?
Anybody who's ever tried to get a bubble into soda water will know it's a very difficult process. First of all, you must, of course, have your water. It's essential to get some bubbles in it because that gives you the essential psst. And if you haven't got any psst coming out, you know very well.
Kenneth Williams.
Repetition.
No, only a single repetition.
If you don't have this particular noise occurring when you press the handle of your soda siphon, you will know that your whiskey or whatever else you are topping up will not have quite the same flavour as if you didn't have that psst noise. This is, of course, very difficult if you have got the particular...
Kenneth Williams.
Deviation, what's all this got to do with pressing your siphon? What's it got to do with getting the bubbles in the water?
Quite right.
Thank you.
Deviation is right. You have a point. You have the subject. You have 25 seconds, starting now.
Everyone knows the bubbles are put in by these monks who blow it in. They're famous for it. The monks of Buckfast Abbey blow the air into...
Nicholas Parsons.
I hated to stop him, but I think there was hesitation.
There was hesitation. You have the subject back. Getting bubbles into soda water, starting now.
As everybody knows, the monks of Belfast do not blow the bubbles in...
I didn't say Belfast.
Nobody said.
You did. I never said
I
you
said
did.
Buckfast.
But I never said you said it. I was talking about the monks of Belfast.
We don't penalise for deafness. You have the subject back. You have under a quarter of a minute, starting now.
When I was last in Buckfast, I was talking to a chap who knows a great deal about this subject, and he said to me, "Fruits are the greatest fruity eaters are the soda fruit and cider eating the pissed and the soda fruit and so you do."
Geraldine Jones.
I can't understand it, but it sounds awfully repetitive.
No. Nick, start now.
Anybody who knows our delightful English dialects will know this is a very simple thing. It means that you must have bubbles.
Kenneth Williams.
What have dialects got to do with bubbles in the water? It's deviation, and you know it, Clement. Now, come on.
You have 1 point, and you have 1 second to go on getting bubbles into soda water, starting now.
As I said before, you blow them in.
The challenge was too late. The point goes to Kenneth Williams. The score now is Nicholas Parsons still in the lead.
Oh!
Closely followed by Kenneth Williams, who is 2 points behind, some way in front of Geraldine Jones, who is lying third. But has the next subject, which is hesitation. And in this subject, you do not use the indefinite article a. So will you speak for 1 minute on hesitation without using the indefinite article A, starting now.
The important thing to remember about hesitation is that it's a tremendously valuable asset. Anyone who...
It
Nicholas
is
Parsons.
very tremendously
Quite right,
valuable
you have a
asset.
point, you have the subject, you have 53 seconds, starting now.
Just think how difficult it is to play this game when you have two people sitting beside you with buzzers in their hand, their fingers ready to press them at the slightest deviation, hesitation.
Geraldine Jones.
Hesitation.
Yes. Geraldine Jones, you have a point, you have the subject. Hesitation. 33 seconds to go, starting now.
Everything that is enjoyable is made more enjoyable by hesitation. Things which are not enjoyable are made...
Kenneth Williams.
Enjoyable we had twice.
Repetition?
Yes, quite.
Right, you have a point, you have the subject, starting now.
Hesitation, as the poet says, he who hesitates is lost. And of course this remains a fundamental.
Geraldine Jones.
are fundamental.
Quite right. You have a point, you have the subject.
Oh,
20 seconds to go, starting starting now.
If you like doing something, it's much nicer if you pause before you start doing it. If you don't like it, you pause and then you put off doing it.
Nicholas
She's
Parsons.
doing it an awful lot. Repetition.
I thought she was doing it once too often. You have the subject. You have 8 seconds to go, starting now.
Hesitation is a subject which Kenneth Williams, when he plays to the audience here and gets laughs which the listeners know nothing about, will only...
Nicholas, you have another point and a commanding lead. And Kenneth Williams, you have the next subject, which is my favorite meal, which we would like you to talk about for 1 minute without using the personal pronoun I. My favorite meal without using the word I.
Impossible,
starting
Kenneth Williams.
now.
Well, there's your boiled beef and carrots, of course, which is a staple of the Cockney diet. Then, of course, there's your liver and bacon. Then, of course, for me...
Nicholas, Geraldine Jones.
We haven't got to his favourite meal yet. Deviation.
I think I'll ask the audience. Now, let's do it simultaneously. If you think Geraldine Jones is right, will you cheer? If you think Kenneth Williams is right, will you boo? Now! Kenneth Williams is right. Start now.
Then after that you have your steak and kidney pudding. This is absolutely delicious, but it must be taken fresh from the oven. It's no good having it hotted up. That's no good.
Geraldine Jones.
I insist this isn't about my favourite meal. It's about food in general.
I think you're right. You have the subject. You have 37 seconds to go. My favorite meal without using the word I, starting now.
My favourite meal changes from time to time.
Kenneth Williams.
Oh, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's a daft statement, isn't it? I mean, how can your favourite meal change? You can't have a favourite meal.
Wait!
Geraldine Jones, you have a point.
You didn't let me
keep
wait,
the subject.
did you, dear? Oh.
Stop it, Kenneth Williams. Geraldine Jones, my favorite meal, starting now.
The essence of such a thing is that you don't always have it, that it changes.
I think I ought to tell listeners that that was really the nastiest bit of intimidation.
I think she was hesitating, but I think it was very unfair, and I'd like to give the point that I know I'm going to win for this back to Geraldine Jones and the subject.
I will... Geraldine Jones, you have a point, and you have the subject. You have 29 seconds, starting now.
My favourite meal must be eaten in the company of such gallant gentlemen as Nicholas Parsons, who give me points that I don't really deserve. When I say that it changes, I mean that if you go on eating the same thing over and over again, it ceases to be favourite.
Nicholas Parsons.
Repetition over and over again is definite repetition.
I would have been more impressed if you had said, she said the word I.
Oh, yes, she said that as well, but I thought...
Geraldine Jones, you have a point, you have the subject.
I was sorry
You
to
have
say,
15
but
seconds to
Charlie.
go, starting now.
It always changes because you get so sick of the same thing.
Nicholas Parsons.
Hesitation.
Yes, right.
Right.
You have the subject. 10 seconds to go, starting now.
I don't know what this subject is, but I will...
Geraldine Jones,
I.
you have a point. My favorite meal, starting now.
Sometimes it's steak, sometimes it's salmon, sometimes...
Nicholas Parsons,
Sometimes, 3 times. Repetition.
a point. 5 seconds to go, starting now.
My favourite meal is a conglomeration of dishes which go on the table with such precision.
At the latter end of the scale, Geraldine Jones and Kenneth Williams are now even. Unfortunately, 7 points behind Nicholas Parsons, who has the next subject, the best way of entertaining friends without using the word the. The best way of entertaining friends, starting now.
Best way of entertaining friends. It's impossible to talk about this subject. It begins with this definite article.
Geraldine Jones, you challenged.
Hesitation.
You have a point. You also have the best way of entertaining friends, starting now.
You must always bear in mind what your friends like doing. This is undoubtedly advisable when...
Inadvisable.
Nicholas Parsons.
Hesitation.
Right. You have the subject, starting now.
When I'm entertaining my friends, my first thought is to ask Clement Freud to come round to the dinner. Or...
Kenneth Williams.
Deviation.
No. Nicholas Parsons, you have another point, and you keep the subject.
I also like to ask Kenneth Williams, in spite of the fact that...
Geraldine Jones.
The.
You're right, you have a point, you have the subject, you have 37 seconds, starting now.
Too many people, when entertaining friends, think only of themselves, and this leads to a number of awfully boring evenings. I've sat through innumerable such events.
Hesitation.
Reluctantly, yes. You have a point. You have the subject, starting now.
My favourite guest to entertain is Geraldine Jones. She is the most delightful...
Geraldine Jones.
Modesty impels me to say hesitation.
You have the subject, now.
Entertainment is often a very boring affair, which is quite the opposite of...
Kenneth Williams.
We had boring before. She's already done that. She said she sat through all these boring eves. Now we're off again on boring.
Yes, she did. You have a point, you have the subject, you have 18 seconds, starting now.
Entertaining. Well, of course, you come into the room and you...
Geraldine Jones.
The room.
Oh, I
Quite
didn't
right.
realise that.
Geraldine Jones, 14 seconds to go. The best way of entertaining friends, starting now.
When people try to entertain friends deliberately, they always fail. You have to let people do what they want. This is invariably a very good...
Nicholas Parsons.
Well, hesitation...
Yes,
but
you're
the
right, you have the
people-
subject, starting now.
When you have Clement Freud in your kitchen and he refuses to cook, the best thing is to twist his arm.
You said the.
But you didn't challenge.
Nicholas Parsons said the. Kenneth Williams looked at him, but didn't press his buzzer, so Nicholas Parsons has another point. It is now in a commanding lead. But Geraldine Jones is second and Kenneth Williams is last. Geraldine, it's your subject. Will you talk for 1 minute on bowling, starting now?
This is a terribly technical subject which I know nothing about. When I was at school, we had to play cricket, and part of learning to play this game involved learning how to bowl. It always involved such an enormous expenditure of effort, not just running, but wheeling around with your arms as well, that I decided very early on I would never, ever learn to bowl. Other people, I believe, do. Occasionally, my father forces me to watch cricket on television as part of widening my educational horizons. When I do, I always find it terribly boring, and particularly the part where the man bowls. It takes such a dreadfully...
Nicholas
That's the
Parsons.
third bowl we've had. Actually, there were 4, I think, but definitely. Bowling, Christ, when you talk
Very
about bowling at
ungallant.
school
Very ungallant.
and bowling. No, she did go for a very long time.
Yes, don't go on.
You're such a hard man, as Kenneth said.
Nicholas Parsons, you lose a
Oh
point
my
for...
God, he is.
You lose a point for repeating yourself on the challenge.
Yes, he loses it.
But you get the subject, bowling. You have 35 seconds to go, starting now.
Bowling is, of course, a gentle, lovely game. Upon the green swards of England, you will see these delightful elderly people with their little rolled-up mats railing down on one knee and tossing the ball gently across the green sward until it comes up against the little white pill the other end. Sometimes they say, "Yeah, it's your turn, Mabel. You see if you can beat that one because I bowled a good one. See if you can do it better."
I like the bit about Mabel.
Commendable point won by Nicholas Parsons on bowling. That is it. And Nicholas Parsons wins with 33 points, for which I think he deserves a small modicum of applause.
I don't. I think it's disgraceful. It's disgraceful. You're cheating.
Geraldine Jones, who was my own particular selection, as many of you must have noticed, came second with 25 points. And Kenneth Williams came last. Goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute this week was Clement Freud. The programme was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch.